let's dive into one of my favorite topics to discuss, and it just happens to be one of the most controversial topics in the whole world of health, which is root canals and mercury amalgam fillings. Now, these are two very critical topics to discuss because behind so many metabolic issues, so many issues such as cancer, MS, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, lupus, types of leukemia, types of blood chemistry disorders, cancers of all kinds, candida infections, digestive dysbiosis, Lyme disease, many other things, neurological and nervous system collapses, immunological collapses. It appears, based on the research, based on the observational and evidence-based research, that so many of these major issues have a root cause. And it happens to do with the dental procedures that have been done on a lot of these people. For example, new research has come out to say that 97% of terminal cancer patients have had root canals in the past. That is just mind-blowing to me. It's totally staggering when you think about that, because root canals, for example, are pushed upon people. They're thrusted upon people. They're enforced upon people through the dental fear component. You may have experience of going to a conventional dentist and you're just getting a routine checkup, you know, no big deal. Maybe you have a cavity, you need to get that cleaned up, you know, something like that. Maybe get your teeth whitened, you know, whatever. And then you go there and then they inspect your teeth and then they give you the doomsday report. They trigger that fear mechanism and they tell you, oh, you know, we found this problem. You know, there's this bacterial infection. We have to rip out the tooth. We have to do a root canal. And I want to say for the record definitively that there is no reason whatsoever that anybody should ever have a root canal procedure done. No reason whatsoever. No matter what dentist tells you, no matter what person tells you this, there is no reason, there is no health beneficial reason that somebody should ever have a root canal procedure under any circumstances. There's plenty of alternative extraction methods. If somebody needs to extract a tooth, that tooth is decaying and it's a necrotic, meaning it's dead, it's dying, it's decaying, then there's extraction methods that can be done safely and effectively. And you have to consult with a biological dentist. The conventional dentist industry, the ADA, the American Dental Association, is one of the biggest scams in our world. I'm going to just say it just like that. I've done the research. I've gone into the history books. I've looked it over. I've been educated by I'm standing on the shoulders of the giants that came before me, like Dr. Hal Huggins, who wrote the famous book, It's All in Your Head. And that book is a ground shaker in the field of dentistry. It's an earth shaker. It breaks up the whole paradigm of the ADA dental kind of thing, of that you need to get root canals, you need to get a mercury amalgam fillings, the whole story, right? So I definitely recommend that you look into the late Dr. Hal Huggins' work. Also, Dr. Weston Price was a big proponent of this idea of being an anti-root canal activist. In fact, in 1922, he published a paper on his original findings of what root canals actually do in the human body. I'll lay it out for you really quickly. Basically, when someone has a root canal done, what the dentist will do is they'll go into the dentin and they'll surgically remove the pulp inside, the inner material inside the dentin encasement. They'll hollow out the tooth, and then what they'll do is they'll just, through different methods of cleaning it all out, they'll start to impact certain material into that tooth and just keep impacting it and then clear it all up. So basically the idea is that there's an infection in the pulp, in the root, in the interior of the tooth, and they need to clean all that out. They need to take out they need to hollow out the tooth basically, and then they'll impact it and then, you know, cover it all up. Now, there's two major issues with this. Now, the first issue with root canals is the idea that root canals are totally sterilized. They're totally clean. There's no chance of infection with a root canal, right? That's the idea. What Dr. Hal Huggins brought to the forefront was that it's impossible to sterilize a root canal. It's impossible. Because what happens is specific bacteria, they're called plasmid types of bacteria, and they infect the dental tubules, which are basically tubes that are in your dental and your teeth, and they can circulate like tunnels or mazes throughout your circulatory system. So those bacteria get basically stuck in the dental tubules through the impaction of the root canals, and then they start to become infected. They create infections in those little burrows. And then the other issue is the PDL, the periodontal ligament. The periodontal ligament is what anchors in the tooth into the gum, and it basically is decaying underneath that root canal. What has been found out through biological or holistic dentistry is that you need to do a full extraction. You need to actually extract the periodontal ligament, otherwise there will be an infection that will proliferate and it will go into the lymphatic system. That tubule tunnel system connects into the circulatory system. It connects through the cardiovascular system. That's why heart disease in a lot of cases is correlated with root canal procedures. That's why cancer is correlated with root canal procedures. That's why nervous system disorders and Lyme disease are correlated with root canals. It's all based on an infection, a systemic circulatory infection. I hope that idea makes sense. So if you or someone that you're working with, someone you know, has a root canal or is being proposed having a root canal, then you need to instruct them to get the guidance of a biological dentist. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion, until you get a dentist that's competent and actually knows what they're doing. The second thing I want to discuss is mercury amalgam fillings. Basic idea here is that mercury as an element is highly carcinogenic. It's highly toxic, I should say. It's neurotoxic. So again, MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, neurological dysfunctions, memory problems, motor function breakdowns, a breakdown to the nervous system insulating tissue called myelin has a lot to do with mercury toxicity. One thing I want to say about mercury amalgam fillings, because there's so much we could talk about, but I really just want to drive this point, is when someone has a mercury amalgam, every time they bite down on it, when you're chewing food or you're grinding your teeth or something, a little bit of that elemental mercury gets off-gassed or out-gassed into the mouth, and then as it gets out-gassed and released from the amalgam filling, it becomes what's called organic mercury. And then it turns into methyl mercury, or a methylated form of mercury. And that form of mercury can be transported through the blood-brain barrier into this thing. And that's how you have the short-circuiting of your neurological system. The breakdown of your myelin insulation strip, it starts to cut into it and break it down. And then that's when you have all the neurological and motor function issues associated with mercury toxicity. So if you do have mercury amalgam fillings, or you're working with somebody that does, you need to instruct them to seek the guidance of a biological dentist that is trained in extracting mercury amalgam fillings safely. Because there's a certain way to do it. You don't just go in there and rip them out. There's a certain way to do it. So finding the right dentist who can actually go in there and extract them properly is critical. Beyond that, there's a number of things we could talk about. Hydrogen peroxide as an anti-infection agent. Now, you don't use 3% hydrogen peroxide if you have mercury. It can become highly reactive because of that metal. But if you don't have mercury in your mouth, you definitely should be mouthwashing with 3% hydrogen peroxide. You can also use angstrom zinc. You can also use a little bit of iodine. These are very powerful anti-pathogenic, antibacterial agents. Also using oil pulling is very powerful. Having a little bit of sesame oil, a little bit of olive oil. My personal favorite is a little bit like that of organic, extra virgin coconut oil. And putting that in my mouth, swishing that in my mouth for about 20 minutes, letting it soak up all the potential infectious organisms, and then spitting that out outside. Doing that, that's an incredible therapy. Tongue scraping in the morning is very important. Flossing between the teeth with an organic floss material. Even putting a little bit of neem oil or peppermint oil on your floss and doing it that way. Very, very prophylactic, very preventative measures that can be taken. Using activated charcoal every once in a while to whiten the teeth, and also as a chelation agent. It binds up and adsorbs to it certain toxins that might be outgassed in the mouth. It binds up those things and allows you to pull those out of the body. There's many other things that we could discuss, but the main thing I wanted to drive forward again was the root canal and mercury amalgam issue. And yeah, that to me is just so critical, so absolutely critical to understand how that works, how that whole situation works, the programming behind it, the corporate interest behind that whole industry. And that industry, by the way, is so up for scrutiny. It's so counter everything that they've proposed it to be that there would be so many class action lawsuits if they actually came out and told the truth about what's happening. So many people's lives have been destroyed and damaged, injured by the application of root canals and mercury amalgam fillings. So really important to understand that.